tarot cards are often the first step and basis for a seeker of metaphysical knowledge, like you, to discover your forever path. That could be astrology, numerology, healing arts, or any other spiritual interest you discover along the way. Elaine Ireland is not only a teacher of tarot, she is a mentor who supports you and will be there for you. Visit www.elaineIrelandtarotmaster.com now and discover how Elaine's mentoring, tarot card and psychic readings, tarot card classes, and more help you to grow into the true being you are meant to be. Welcome to Conversations with the Ancients, where you're about to discover a whole different world than the one that, up until now, you've believed you're familiar with. World-renowned metaphysicist, practicing psychic and tarot teacher Elaine Ireland invites you on a journey where you'll hear voices from the past, interviews with some of the greatest metaphysicians you've never heard of, because in their time, they needed to move with stealth. You'll also meet today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who will show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Be sure you visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, hear the words of metaphysicians who blazed the trail. You're not in jail, thanks to them.
I'm so excited. I'm like a kid in a new toy store.
I love it.
And I was there. This has been a long time coming, and I'm so tickled that you're on tonight. Sara Reeves, folks. Meet Sara Reeves. Reeves. Meet
Yes.
Sara.
Yes. How are you?
She has a fancy setup behind her. She has a real studio.
It's a pretend setup studio. It just makes me look kind of legit, right?
You are legit, girl. You've been doing this a while. You know what you're doing. Tell our listeners what you do, why you do it,
So
and the company that you've created.
Sure. I am the founder of Metaphysicalu, but I started my public practice with a small, tiny little podcast called the Night Owl Podcast that later on changed its name to Night Owl, right? So it's a tiny little podcast that's local here, right? Steven's probably like, you better not say that. But started my public service, I should say, my public practice with them, and then just kind of grew into Metaphysicalu. I just wanted to create a place where somebody could safely come and learn about their intuition and be okay to ask questions and not be just be afraid, and have a community for them. That's not the woohoo part of the practice, right? Something a little bit more practical in learning, because once somebody's starting out, they're very confused as to what's happening to them. And it was the same way that I started, right? The things that were happening to me needed to have explanation, but I was lucky to have a lot of support from my family. And, we have a family line of doing that, but a lot of people, they do not. They're afraid to even say what's happening to them when they are encountering experiences with things that other people can't see. It's so fun.
It's kind of scary because locally, and I've said this before, I think I've told you, on the books many years ago here in Austin, the Austin area, I don't know whether it was statewide or just local, if you could hear, see, feel, smell something that no one else could, you could be declared crazy.
Exactly.
And they could, without permission of your family, they could put you behind bars, which is part of what Freud studied. He even took a lady home from one of the institutions in his local area, knowing that she wasn't crazy. She was psychic. She ended up being his housekeeper for many, many, many years. And he helped her integrate, so to speak, into the community. But that's a real fear for a lot of people, even to be judged as incompetent, I guess you would call it. So yeah, you provide
absolutely.
to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be a safe place to be able to do it, and to learn and to understand that the experiences that feel very just personal and it's only happening to you, right? It's always like, I feel like it's only happening to me. When you find out that somebody has had almost the exact same experience as you did, right? And maybe in a different setting, but it's almost exactly the same thing. It just kind of gives you that, that final realization of, I am not insane, right? This is like a thing. This is a thing that really does happen. And then to find a community full, that's probably the most fun part. That's why I still, even today, when I started this I started this particular part of my business in 2020 and started in 2021 a Wednesday night development group that's free, right? Somebody can just log in, click on it, join us, bring their story, bring their questions, or just sit and listen to us have a conversation about whatever's going on in that moment. Sometimes I'll do challenges and things like that, or explanations, definitions, or picking their brain out as to what do you think this is, or how is this working? It's a great community to have if you just, maybe you want to dip your toes in and you're not quite sure how to, where to go or who to talk to. And this is a great way to kind of network a little bit and be in the community of the same people who are going through the same thing.
You said some things there, development group. Mm-hmm. So you don't consider it a class, but when you're in a group like that, you can't help but grow. If
right.
Nothing else. You do learn that there are others like you, and that gives you some confidence to speak in a safe space. But what are some of the things that people experience? What did you experience? And when did you realize that the word psychic was appropriate? We have not mentioned yet that you are a heck of a medium. So what's the difference between just being psychic? I say just being psychic. I say that with great respect. And being a medium, because not everybody's a medium.
No, not everybody is a medium.
To be a medium.
Yeah. So I'll give you my definition, right? My definition of it in the way that I've experienced as I've been teaching. A medium is somebody, it's about the how, right? How we receive information. A medium receives the information directly from the spirit world. There's no in-betweensies, right? There's nothing that goes to, entity to the person. It comes in and then they can just speak it out. Where a psychic sometimes has to go through something, like through a tool or through even the person itself to kind of get the message kind of coming in. So the difference is only about the how. The other differences are about the responsibility to share, right? So a medium typically doesn't go out there and charge you for their services. A psychic is able to do that because it's an indirect message, right? If I have a clear, direct message that I have to give to somebody and I'm prompted to talk to them, I am under my own responsibility to go, let me give them the message, right? It's who am I to be like, hey, give me $20 and I'll tell you what the message is. No, fuck no. Sometimes that person just needs an urgent something and I get prompted to tell them. And that's the hard part, right? Because you got to come up to somebody and go, okay, this is going to sound a little crazy, but I have a message for you. Would you let me do that? And to even just say that phrase, the courage it takes to even do that, to out yourself, right, to a stranger or something like that, it's insane, right? It's insane. But don't worry, you get the calluses of that going on, and eventually you just start going, hey, I have something for you. You want it or not, right? I don't care. But it is scary when you first do it.
Grocery store. I talk to you for a minute, please. Yeah.
I'm sorry, right? And I will start off like, hey, I know this sounds insane. I'm a medium, but I have a message for you. You can want to hear it or not. If you don't want to, that's fine. I just need to make the attempt, right? The attempt to be able to give it to you. And I don't even know what it's going to mean, right? So here's your thing, right? So, that's the only difference I know and I understand from being a medium between being a psychic. It's just about the how we receive the information, and the responsibilities are a little bit different involved. And I think that's why you have a lot of people who are medium psychics or psychic mediums, because in order for us to charge for our services or to do something like that, we have to learn a different tool, which is extremely uncomfortable for a true medium. It's hard to learn a tool, to have something, because the tool helps the other. I've noticed over time, and then you being we didn't say this, but she is my mentor. So, and I have a tarot master as a mentor, right? So the idea is, even me wanting to learn a tool, I really had to wrestle with the idea of it until you even said, you've got to learn, right? Like, you've got to be able to understand what the other half of your students are doing, right? Not just the medium half. And I was like, yeah, that's true. I do have to do that. So learning how to use another tool, the benefit was understanding different things, right? The symbolism and things, and making me research some other stuff. But it's a difficult thing for me to do. So I have to combine both practices, because for me, when I use a tool, I only get half the information. I don't get everything. And it frustrates me, right? I want to be able to.
I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to move. Go ahead.
I firmly believe that after time, we don't really use the tool. We just see what it has to offer.
Absolutely.
as either teachers or practitioners. And I love working with the tarot cards. People like us to have a tool. The public can go home and say, the cards say, the numbers say, astrology
Yeah.
says, and that's a science, and so is numerology.
Yeah.
And whatever the tool is. But there comes a point in our practice with experience that tools are an arrow. They point energy to a certain thing. But we don't always have to have it. You get your messages loud and clear when you're driving down the road. Most practiced psychics do that. When they have a tool, it helps. And
It
especially
enhances.
if you're mentoring other people, you give them confidence in what they're seeing in a deck of cards or another tool. And they go, oh, okay, then I can say, and it's valid because.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you're one of those psychics that it just comes out.
It's word vomit. Yeah, it's great. But you do make a good point, because over time, as you start to use and learn and move, you realize that the tool really isn't for you. The tool is to make the other person sitting across from you comfortable, right? How scary is it if somebody could just look right at you and go, here's all these things, right? It feels like a little bit of an invasion, right? Or a little bit weird. So it does make that comfort that says, oh, well, they had, things mapped out. So that's what the thing said, right? Like that's what the numbers told them. That's what the thing, but they just don't understand that there's more bits and pieces to it. So even when I do a reading, I might throw out, and then I never do, like, I'm always jealous that you can do like these beautiful spreads that have like 1 million cards in there. And I'm like, I can't understand that. That's not going to stay. So I stick to 3, right? I get 3 cards. That's all you get, right? I put 3 things down, and then that's the story.
It's like they're like turning pages in a book, they're adding words. Yeah, I'm sorry, I've done it long enough that it just doesn't.
I think it's amazing.
I grew up with.
I think it's amazing. It's really pretty to watch and to see how it all connects. Like, I understand how it all connects, but it just isn't graphed for me. It's, to me, the 3 cards that I have just focus the direction of where I want to go and validate to my mouth, right? It validates to either say something nicely or not. They're not ready for something, so you got to sugarcoat that a little bit. And it kind of gives me the filter that I normally don't have, so it's kind of fun, right?
Oh, I like that filter. That's good. Filter, I like that. I may borrow that someday. Yeah, the filter says. When you have somebody that calls you and says, I was referred to you because I think I'm crazy. Yep. What is the first thing you might say to that person?
I first ask them, tell me why you think you're crazy, right? I love to hear that, because then they start off with, well, here's the story, right? And they start telling me the story of their experiences. And I love to respond with, well, that's perfectly normal for somebody who's either a psychic or a medium. That's very normal. And usually you see their face after the 3rd time I say, that's actually really normal. They're not telling me anything out of the normal. They're like, what? Right? What do you mean? And then I allow them to just fully kind of unleash whatever they do. And I will typically always tell them, you see, you're not crazy. It's just something that you're experiencing that somebody else doesn't experience. It's this analogy, right? I give this analogy to a lot of my students, and I think it's really fun. If you're walking down, let's say, a beautiful wooded path, and you're alone, there's nobody there with you, and you're just going for this beautiful hike, you're taking in the scenery, and then all of a sudden this wonderful, beautiful, majestic owl comes to you, right? It flies down, lands in front of you, you get to pet it and interact with it, and it's just giving you those beautiful eyes, and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome, and you're just dreaming somebody was there with you, but you're there looking at it. And then you go home and you tell everybody in your house that you had this experience with an owl. The experience is real. It didn't just not, right? You felt the feathers of the owl. You understood the wind as it moved. You did that, but nobody was there to see it. So does that make it not true? Not real. No.
Yeah. One of the purposes of this podcast, as I develop it, is for the public to know that practitioners, vendors that support us, bookstores that support us, are real. We're real people. We bleed, we hurt, we cry, we laugh, we find
Absolutely.
joy. We're not this weird group that nobody else can get into. We're not the cool kids in high school kind of club. We've reached all kinds of challenges to just participate in this world, and it takes a lot of courage. Years ago, there was a lady here in Austin that was a nurse, and then later a retired nurse. She was a single mom that was jailed many times for fortune telling, because that's what's on the books here in Texas, here in Austin, or was at that time. I think it still is. In other words, the police department could walk into any of our fairs or gatherings and arrest all of us for fortune telling. And if we were evaluated as crazy, we could be in an insane asylum by midnight that same night. That was what she had to face, along with other readers in town. Years and years and years ago, you had to know somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody. I didn't even have business cards until I was in my 40s. And the first cards I had was Elaine Psychic, Tarot. A lot of people didn't know what Tarot was, and a phone number. That was it. No two-sided cards, nothing fancy. It was a scary time. And over the years, I've seen scary, not so scary, accepted. That's how psychic fairs came to be, because people were excited about having all of those to pick from. But the producers were taking a big chance on even renting a room. In my younger days, the newspaper would not take advertisements from us. We couldn't advertise at all. And finally, the Austin American-Statesman said, okay, we'll put you over here with the massage people, when it really wasn't massage. But he gets my drift, right? So we were clumped together with everything that was not so nice. And we couldn't even advertise our fairs. And when we finally got to advertise our fairs, they were back in the sports section.
Nice.
And then they moved us to the bridal section, where, okay, people are going to see who got married, right? But it was usually after the fair. So we've come a long way, baby, as they say.
We have.
But
And I think the practitioners of today need to understand that we are quite literally standing on the roads that were paved from others who were arrested or even killed, right? That is a thing. That is a true thing. And that we now, especially through like social media and things like that, it's fucking everywhere, right? Like it's all over the place now. Psychic this, psychic that, read the things, do the astrology, just do that thing. Now it's all over the place. And it's turned, to me, the substance of it has turned from a true mystical kind of hidden gift in this frame that we're being able to unite some people that now with the social media, because they're not really, it's almost like the younger generations thinking this is a quick way to make money, or this is a quick way to get likes, that they're filtering garbage now. And it makes actual practitioners look bad, right? Because now we're in this other conundrum now. So we went from, we could be murdered if we even said or used our gifts, to, oh, these guys are just trying to take your money, right? Like they're hoaxsters and pranksters and like all of this stuff, even more so than what it used to be thought of. So it's this really weird balance, because I've told a lot of people, the best practitioners, the ones who understand and they really, really, truly move out of their zone to make room for someone else, no one knows who they are. No one knows who they are.
That's why in the past, somebody had to know somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody.
Right.
And you would know as a psychic, let's say, in which they did, that really did want a reading or help of some sort. And then the people that are in the psychiatrists, therapists, counselors, we're not allowed to use the word counselor on our business, any of our business stuff in the state of Texas, unless we're licensed. We're not. And I get why, but they made it a law. And we can, now you can buy degrees, so to speak, or buy titles. And
Right.
and that's how some people, especially healers, get around not being able to touch and to do their healing work, is they become a minister, which I did.
Well, me too.
I became a minister
I'm
before I
ordained.
married people. But if I wanted to, I could do hands-on. I don't. When I did healing, I never did hands-on, never. And if I happened to, I would make sure there was somebody else in the room. But the point being, we have to, as a group, we have to protect each other from anybody that would misinterpret what our efforts of help meant. And we're getting back into that now.
Absolutely.
But you're so right. There are so many people out there now. It's very crowded. And I'd say 90% of them really have a talent, whether they're going to use it forever and ever and ever and make it a thing in their life, or just use it when needed.
Right. And it's
something
just
else.
because intuition is found in everyone, right? It's the difference of
Yes, everybody has it.
right. It's the difference between, somebody who walks and somebody who's a runner in the Olympics, right? It all depends on where you want to go. Do you want to become that person that jogs around the neighborhood and is cool? Do you want to be that person that maybe does weekend or monthly marathons and does that? Or are you really striving to go to the Olympics? Are you really training and doing the thing, right? So everybody can do this. Everyone can walk, everybody can run, but not everyone wants to be in the Olympics, right? That's just how I see intuition. Everybody has it, and it truly is you wanting to learn about it, put yourself in the awareness of things, train as far as you want to go. There's no limit to how you want to learn in the metaphysical. There's no limit, because it's literally, you can pick one subject for the rest of your life and be learning it forever. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
It never stops teaching you. So you can go as far as you want. If you're just somebody who's very happy just jogging around the block every so often, then fine. That's great. If you're just the slow walker that says, well, I just want to know when I encounter something, I'm good. Perfect. But if you truly are somebody who's going into the Olympics, then go to the Olympics. Put that in your frame, right? That's what we want to do, right? The lifelong Olympics. That's what I call it. You're training for the rest of your life.
How did you get from, you said you took it to the public in 2020, but how long were you practicing quietly and studying quietly before then?
So I took it to the public. I took it to the public in 2017, but I've always had the ability to see things, even as a child. And I didn't chalk it up to having mediumship at the time. And I think it's because of how we grew up, right? I'm half Black, half Hispanic. I grew up in West Texas, and a lot of the community that I grew up in, there is a combination of, being in maybe a Christian religion and believing in, curanderismo, or, people who you would go to be able to tell you what's going on when you're not doing well. So this was an integral part of me growing up. I didn't really understand.
Wait.
Whoa, I'm frozen.
Wait, hang on. I want to, yeah, you froze, but it gave me an opportunity to interrupt you. Your background is very, very interesting because of how you grew up. Mm-hmm. And we may not have time to talk about that part of it, but say the word again. Carismo?
Yeah. Curanderismo.
Your other... Right. That's so pretty. That's a whole different conversation that I would like to talk about at a later date, because that would take another 2 or 3 hours just to talk about that.
Yeah.
And your background. So public, watch for an announcement with that. We'll do a whole nother session on that, and with Sara by herself, but then there will be others as well, because that is a group of professionals and a long, long group of history.
Yes.
Healers that I think needs to be recognized. So we're gonna jot that down. Okay,
it's done.
It's jotted on your paper.
Note it. So make note. Yeah.
I've got two notes here.
To me, this was normal. Like, these things were normal. There wasn't something that I understood it to be that I was exceptionally good at, or, something that was just a rare. I just thought everybody can do that, right? Everybody can. That's part of the normal, because the whole community I grew up in believes in all this stuff. There's never really a no, right? There was a negative tone, a negative connotation to, like, the experience, right? Oh, that's all a demon, right? Like, I hear that a lot. That's all, that kind of stuff. there was that negative tone to it, but it was still something that was every day in the culture around me. So it really wasn't until I came here that I understood that it was a rarity. Like it was something different. And I had shut off the ability because I shouldn't say shut it off. I just walled it off because I had little ones and I was trying to make sure they survived. So I used it to really drive me as far as trusting my intuition when I needed to be somewhere or do something. But I didn't really, if I experienced something like I saw like apparitions moving around, some of them were just like you and me. So I never really noticed that they were, spirits, human spirits. And some of them, when I did know that they were, I would be like, nope, I don't have time for you. I've got toddlers, right? I've got toddlers. I got time for you. I need to survive here. And so until my life started to settle down, I, hit somewhere in my mid-30s, big emotional crisis happening here at the house. All of a sudden, everything started. And that's when it really grabbed my full attention of like, I need to pay attention to this. And thank God, this is where we met Stephen, right? Stephen and his group from Night Owl, where they were like, it's not your house, right? We thought our house is haunted. It's you, right? You're the issue. You're haunted, right? You're causing all this. And then it just dawned on me. I reached out to my oldest sister, Anna, and she was like, well, remember these things that used to happen and this stuff. And remember that we learned how to do these things and remember this. And so bringing me back into what we grew up doing, and then me making the connection that, oh, that wasn't just normal every day. That was actually like mediumship practice. That was actually, psychic work. That was actually cleansing work. That was healing work. And to us, it was just integral to how we grew up. It wasn't, anything like, wow, you can do this special thing. It was just like, yeah, everybody knows how to do that. Crazy. So, and
well, it's the same thing if we were to move to East India. They have practices that are normal for them.
Absolutely.
They just, we, no matter where we live, we're doing the same thing. We just call it something different.
The semantics. Yeah. The semantics.
Yeah, semantics. It's kind of like God. We've got all this beautiful energy and different people call it different things. And it's all one energy. For me, it's all one energy. I don't care what you call it. It does the same thing.
Yeah. And for me, it's the same thing. I don't care what you call it. I do use, like when I do teach and things like that, I try to use as generic terms as possible so that the other person can fill in the blank with what they understand. That way, they're grasping and learning and building and supporting what they already believe. I'm not pushing anything on them. I'm just saying, fill in the blank with the word you need, right? Like fill in the blank with your semantics, but this is what it means. And I define what it means so that they can go, oh, you mean this, right? And they apply their word. And that's fair. I'm respecting their belief system while not pushing mine, right? And leaving myself open to listen to what their belief system is. And I think that's where, as a society right now, we fail at that. We think that you have to do it my way, and that's not true. Everybody's unique. Everybody's different. That means their thoughts are different and how they believe is different. And we want to understand the perspective so that we can be respectful to their frame. And then we take on what makes sense to us and we let go of what doesn't. Right? You just make mental note like, oh, that's a thing, right? Make a mental note of it. And then you just kind of keep going. Right. There's no need to get offended by it or be all upset about it.
It's so hard. It's hard to take everything in. We have blocks subconscious blocks that we don't even know we have. And that's why you learn a certain way and I learn differently, but it's the same thing that we're learning. And yet we can turn right around and teach it to someone else or share the information with someone else. We are not all on the same level of acceptance of what's being said. That's one of the reasons I encourage people to record readings, because they're not going to hear everything. That's just the way our brain works. It's the way our spirit works too. Our spirit has to absorb and say, do I need this? Absolutely. Yes, I need it. But even absorbed, it's still there if we need it next lifetime. For the listeners, I know not all of you believe in past lives and future lives, but you do. That's the way I look at knowledge. I just take it. Somebody says something and I go, what? Oh, I'll save that. And then get on with my life. Rather than argue with them about whether it's real or not real. It's real to them. So then there must be something. If I hear something or feel something, it must be because I need it or somebody else needs it.
Right.
So that's the way I deal with
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And, I have
Being
a
psychic,
lot of, go ahead.
being psychic is a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster.
It is,
Yeah, I mean,
working in intuition is a roller coaster for everyone. It's one of those things that you can't nail it down. It's always changing or moving. It has its up and downs. And people don't understand that 98% of what we do is self-work. It has nothing to do with working with a spirit. It has everything to do with working with us, with our own self, our own acceptance, our own frame of mind of thinking. And when we get upset, like this is my favorite thing, when somebody says a word to you and your response is defensive, and I did this to a student, and she immediately was like, I can't work with you anymore, right? Because you used a term that pissed me off. And I'm like, if it made you mad, that means A, I was on point somewhere, and B, you never stopped to ask yourself why it pissed you off. What was the purpose?
mm-hmm.
Sometimes you've got to understand when something does cause discomfort in you, you need to understand where it comes from. The moment you understand where it comes from, you can remove a block and open yourself up more into the light, into the energy and the frame of your awareness. And people are afraid.
Thank you for saying that. Fear is a big thing, I think. I can't speak for every single living psychic out there, but I've worked with enough psychics, some are mediums and some are not, that live in a form of fear every day for who's going to sneak up behind me? When are the cops going to come? When is that angry husband or angry wife going to show up on my front door? There's what we do creates a sense of insecurity often and real fear for valid reasons, but we keep doing it because we know it's necessary. You can call it a calling if you want to, but one of the things that I've known to happen, I've witnessed it, is if a psychic says, I'm not going to do this anymore. I've got kids to raise. I've got this to happen. I'm getting too old. I don't trust myself anymore. I'm not going to do it anymore. Then the roof comes down around their head until they begin doing it again because they're not finished. We're not finished. I believe you're free to tell me otherwise. I believe we don't get to retire until all of the people that we are supposed to touch this lifetime has sat with us.
Absolutely.
Or been in a class.
Absolutely.
And then return. That's it.
Absolutely. And, far-fetched, that's going to stop in your lifetime, right? The idea, though, is to understand that when we do that, when we're like, no, it's too much. I have this, I have that, I have this. That's the moment when shit's hitting the fan, that's the moment when all of your practice, all of the things that you've learned, that's where you lean. That's when you begin to reach out. You're not walking around every day going rainbows and sunshine, light hitting the world, doing all that. That is not that realistic. We're still human. We are both fully human and both divine. And we have to still have the human experience now, which means you're going to have human responses, the frustration, the doubt, the despair, the sadness, the grief that's going on with it. But that's when you lean on your divine to help you through that. And a lot of practitioners forget about that. I'm included. All of a sudden, I'll just go down in my human realm the way that I used to do stuff. And I go, whoa, midway through going, wait. I have a tool. I have a tool to get through this. Let me go back and lean on that. But I still need to give myself the human moment. I still need to have the emotion and allow it to happen and let myself immerse myself into the human instant. But I can't forget that I have the tools of my practice to lean on it when shit hits the fan. That's the whole point. You can slow down and say, hey, right now, spirit guides, I'm sorry, please don't send me anybody to work on. I really need to arrange this. But eventually that door or flood door is going to go back open. So that means you still have to practice. This happens every day. You have to do at least one thing for yourself every day within your practice.
Good example is what's been happening in my life for the last 3 years with my partner. Off and on, we've had surgery after surgery after surgery. And it's interesting because the phone stopped ringing. It just stopped ringing. It wasn't like, okay, spirit, I need you. They knew. But for every challenge that we as individuals have in our human life, it it's it's a hand in a glove with what's going on in our practice. And what we need to learn, call it karma, call it knowledge, what we need to put in our teaching, I call it the teaching basket. And we do what we need to do, and then we move on. And I realized I had come to the end of those challenges about 2 months ago when the phone started ringing and things started falling into place to put this podcast together.
Yep.
It was just like within 3 days, like you said, the doors opened again. And I had a fair. I could actually go. I had to stop. I had to not go to one before that because I just couldn't do it. But then all of a sudden the doors were open. That was the human doors. But everything we'd been through individually and together as partners and with the support of family and friends, I needed to use in some other way. So even if you're a newbie at all of this and something pulls you back, it's not, please don't interpret that action as I'm not supposed to do this. It's an event you're supposed to integrate with your life so you can grow. I really want the public to hear that.
Yes, because we're still here to have the human experience. We're here to understand what it's like to be human as a divine person. So,
Right.
Of course, we have to go through things in order to understand that stuff. And we also have to remember that there is a divine in us we can lean on when things get rough.
Another thing that I used to tell my students, I used to teach 3 different levels of tarot. And I would limit my classes to 8 people after I realized 12 was too many. But anyway, but typically 6 would stay, which was okay because with me, that's 7. That's a spiritual number. That's good. That's okay. They'll come back when they needed to, and they did. But I would tell them at our first meeting, now, Spirit's going to challenge you. One of these evenings, you're going to come out of work because you intend to come here after you get off work, and you're going to have a flat tire. Or your babysitter is going to call and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't stay. Something will happen to get in the way of you coming here to do this. And more than once, I would have somebody call and say, may I bring my kid tonight? I would say, sure, they're supposed to be here, bring them. But there may be times when you've made a conscious effort to grow, to learn something, even to have a quiet time to read a book or listen in today's world, a podcast. Notice that plug? Something will get in your way, but that's okay. You keep at it. And
Yep.
if something happens and you can't take that class you wanted to take, just wait. The timing's not right, but don't give up. Just don't give up, folks. Just don't give up. Keep trying.
Right.
If you're supposed to,
Don't be
do
strict.
what you're supposed to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't be strict in the regimen of doing this. And a lot of people who are learning, they're like, oh, if I have to do this every day, I've got to map it in a routine schedule, right? I got to like, kind of like the military schedules. And I said, no. Don't be tight on the schedule. Just commit to doing one thing for yourself that day. One thing. That's it. And it doesn't matter when you do it, whatever the time of day or of it, but just feel incomplete if you haven't done just one thing, right? That's kind of how it works. Because if you start a set schedule for yourself, and let's say you're like, it's 6 o'clock in the morning, that's when I get up and meditate. That's when I, do the stuff for myself. And then your alarm doesn't go off and you don't get up until 7. Then you're going to say, well, I didn't get that done, I'm not going to do it. Instead of just going,
I guess I'm not supposed
to, right? No, you're committing to yourself, which means truly commit and say, I have to do at least one thing. Right? Even if I just got to read one sentence off of a book, listen to 5 minutes out of my podcast, do some transitional meditation, something quick and dirty, right? Write my thoughts down in a journal in just single, bulleted lines just to get it, draw the symbol that popped into my head, or talk to a friend and give them some advice. One thing. That's all you got to do. Honor the space for yourself just once. That's all you have to do.
Be consistent as you can, as your everyday, live a life, take care of yourself, your family, your friends will allow you. That's another thing. When you became more public, more involved with your learning, did you lose friends? Did you have family member? Well, you probably didn't have family members that turned away because this was very much a part of your family unit. But did you lose people in your life because they thought you were going crazy or looking
No, not
towards
because they
the
thought
negative
I,
energy?
not that I thought I was going crazy, but I think it's because it scared them. So not necessarily either people that were really close to me, because the people that really know me, they know I always did weird things, or like I had some weird kinds of something, right? Like I was like, she's a little off, right? She picks weird shit up, right? There's things that I don't know why she knows, she just knows, right? So they kind of already knew that. The one thing that I found extremely interesting is that when I started the podcast, I actually started with pseudonym. Like Sarah is not my actual real name, right? So, and I did it that way because I wanted at the time, my thought process is like, what if somebody tries to track me down and something happens to my family? And my kids at the time were younger. And so I wanted to protect them, but also selfishly also keep me a little bit in the shadow frame that I've been accustomed to all the time. So once the podcast got a little bit bigger and people really started hearing me in different places, like weird stuff, I'd go to the grocery store and I'd talk and I would see people look at me like, your voice is really familiar. And I'm like, fuck, right? Never wore that Night Owl podcast t-shirt out anywhere. Right. So when people at
Hide
work
from the cameras.
yeah, I didn't know there was no images, me, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
And when I went to work, someone, I guess, realized it. They were like, I think she's on this podcast. And then I think it kind of got around, right? This is a small office. There's just a small group of people. And then all of a sudden, the people that were perfectly fine talking to me for the last 10 years stopped talking to me. They didn't want to approach me in any way, shape, or form where they were alone with me. And it was only if they absolutely had to was how they approached me. And I thought it was so interesting, right? I was like, huh, that's rude. But they never said, I know that's what you're doing. Like they never said any of that. They just stopped talking to me altogether.
Yeah.
It was an interesting sensation. And I only had one family member who's a married-in that was also a little frightened and would be like, no, you're not touching. Like if I did healings or something, no, you're not touching me. You're not going to come near me. No, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Right. And she's a married-in though. So we'll forgive her that one. But to me, that's really the only experiences that I've had. I think others already knew I could do this. Like deep down, they knew, yeah, that makes sense now. So.
That is where you live. We are in the Bible Belt, and please don't take that in a negative way, listeners. But it's fact. Certain churches, church goers, certain religions just forbid this.
Mm-hmm.
Forbid it. I had the privilege many years ago of attending. One of my high school best friends was Pentecostal. Grew up in a Pentecostal church, and wandered away from it. And then she came back, and then she moved out of town. But she'd come visit me, and when she did, she had her entourage because their religion says that women do not travel alone, and they must have a male with a group of ladies. And they'd usually stay with me, sometimes me and mom, depending on how many she had with her. But she would come visit a rather large Pentecostal church here because she sang. Oh, she had the most beautiful voice, and I would run them around town, so to speak, and I'd go to church with them. What I saw in the Pentecostal church building was laying of the hands, speaking of the tongues, everything that you and I see every day, but only inside the building. It was forbidden for those members to have anything or do any of that outside of the building,
mm-hmm.
which I thought was interesting. And I don't know all the religions in the world. That's the only religion that I know. There are many that do speak in tongues and such, but boy, there were some gifted healers in that group.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, they could only do it within the confines of the church. I know. I saw that they were. I went around, when I was doing my self-discovery of belief system for myself, I actually raised in the Catholic Church, but the moment that I could leave running and screaming, I did. And started to, I would volunteer at different churches. I would start attending different things. I sang when I was younger, so I would either go and volunteer for the choir, or I'd work in the office, or I would do something, because I wanted to understand what they believed, right? That was probably the driver for me, was like, oh, what is the belief system here? Like, is it just slightly different from what I understand, or what's going on? But then I also volunteered purposely because I could see how the people treated each other.
Yeah.
That was like one of those things for me. And I did this, I still kind of do this. I did this until I found like the space that I like to be in now. But I did this a lot. I kind of moved around, and then curiosity would get me. If I found somebody from a different country or something like that, I would be like, oh, what's the belief system there? Or, what do you do? But it was always in a very respectful manner. I never was just kind of looking. I was just wanting to understand kind of how it worked. And so I always found it really funny that the ones that were the most blocked off, I guess is the best way I could describe it. If I asked them why they believed something and they were very defensive, it was always in really weird church settings. Like, I don't want to name the religions because that would be kind of weird, but they were very specific to the Bible Belt for them to wall me off and not want to answer. Yeah, wall me off and not answer the questions. And that's when I kind of came to the conclusion of all these years of doing this, was going, if you don't understand why you believe something and you have to explain it to someone else, you become defensive. It's almost like somebody's, like telling you to murder your firstborn or something. It's the craziest thing. And I'm like, don't be defensive. Just say you don't know why. It's okay for you to say you don't know why, but nobody wanted to admit that. And then, later you'd find out it's just because, their parents did it, or their grandparents did it, and their grandparents did it, but they truly never really went in to do that deep dive and understand why they believe something.
It's usually, well, that's the only way.
Yeah.
Over the years, I think I've had a handful of people say that that's what I was taught and I believed it. Therefore, that's the closest they could say.
Yeah.
But they couldn't go into the Bible and say, because the Bible says. That's different.
Right. Or even just set aside just because the Bible says, and just tell me, why do you believe that? The Bible says it. Yes, I get it. But why do you believe it?
Right.
Why do you
There's so
personally...
much out of the Bible? That's another session. The Bible.
That's a whole, the biblical and the history of religion is a whole other conversation we need to have. That's like,
yeah.
Because
I intend to do that. I'm going. Years ago, I sat on a panel at KUT at the University of Texas. I mean, like a long time ago, and it was on Halloween, and I was the psychic and the only woman on the panel. But there was a Jewish man, a Catholic man, two Baptist ministers, two levels of Baptist churches. There were 7 of us. I can't remember who all now. Kinds. And it was really, I did get to talk, but they didn't want me to talk because I was asking them too many questions.
I know how that feels, Elaine. I know how that feels.
And I told them, I said, my granddaddy was a minister, so hey, I can speak a little Bible. Why do you think the way you do? Why do you preach? Why do each one of you say this is the only way? The only one on that panel that did not say that, but truly lived it, was the Jewish man. He was soft-spoken, loving with his answers, and he could back up everything he said. It was all here and in his heart. But he wasn't doing it in a way of, come on, be Jewish. Come on.
Right. He was simply giving you why he believed.
Not once did he say Jesus was just a prophet.
Yeah.
He said what was. He never spoke against, not one time in the hour and a half we sat there, which I thought was really, really interesting because until then, I had seen the Jewish religion be very pushy. He was the only man, and he was the one that I invited to come to my tarot classes, and he came to talk about the 10 of Pentacles, the Kabbalah card.
The Kabbalah.
He was the one. He was the only one that would come to my class and talk about the Kabbalah, not the tarot.
No, the Kabbalah.
Kabbalah.
Yeah. It's just fun. I issue challenges even to my students as they're developing to compare to religious belief systems or to just belief systems that are outside of the Christian scope. That's something that I'm like, pick 2 outside of the Christian scope, compare them. Compare them, and then I want you to compare them like, how are they the same? How is the belief system the same? What is it that they believe? How are bits and pieces of that belief system reflective of you? Something that you would also believe. And how many of them are things that you just wouldn't do? Does it make any sense? Right? And then I want you to compare it to, your own system of frame, and then do the same thing. How do you believe? Why would you believe it? Is there something you can incorporate as you're learning from these two other practices that you can incorporate to yourself? Right? Just the belief, not necessarily the religion, right? Or that frame, but really understanding how things kind of work, because it'll make them more well-rounded. If they continue to do this throughout their practice, they'll know enough to be dangerous in each religious area or each belief system area, but it'll be enough that when they're working with somebody, because somebody who comes to me for healing isn't always somebody from my belief system or the belief system that I grew up in. They're from different places. And so being able to say, okay, I want you to tap into what you believe the source of you is. At the core of you, at the core of your belief system, you bring that here to this room. I'm going to tap into mine and bring that here to this room. And together we're going to heal you. That's what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to speak on their terms and let them bring in whatever makes them believe that they can be healed, that they are in good company, that they are safe. And I will bring in the same frame, and together we will figure out, let's move this. Let's set the goal. It's important to learn that from each other, not to be upset just because there's no true practice. There's no truth. Truth is perception. It has nothing to do with anything other than that.
See, people, why she's such a good teacher? See why she gets her point across. See why her students grow in a way that they need to grow, the way they're supposed to grow by spirit, and why her people feel safe to say whatever they feel like they need to say, and why she can teach her students how to accept other people. Because as practitioners, we must accept other people for where they are, what they are, who they are, and help them realize who they can become. And as practitioners, we can't see everybody's life every day, but we can certainly say for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, usually, and help them get to where they need to be so they can be the healthiest physically, mentally, and spiritually as they are capable of being every day. And we're not doctors, we're not therapists. We let the practitioners that have the degrees take care of that. But we can send our clients, we can send our students to someone appropriate if they need help that we are not licensed to give them. And we do. But what she just said to you, that's a perfect example of why she is successful in her extra chosen career. And remember what she said a while ago, a lot of that is being self-taught, but being honest with ourselves. And boy, that's a tough one. I don't care if you're going to a psychiatrist. Being honest with yourself so you can be honest with others. We don't know how to do it. That's why we're there. And on a spiritual level, licensed doctors are beginning to realize there's something to this spiritual stuff. There's something to the spirit.
You have to be well-rounded, right? I've always said in order to heal, in order to grow, in order to bring your own awareness, you have to look at the physical part of who you are, the mental part of who you are, and you have to find the spiritual part of who you are. And those things need to be able to be aligned. If not, discomfort, dis-ease ends up happening in the body in different ways. You've got to be able to do that. So when a licensed doctor says, "Hey, I can't find anything wrong with you. I've done all the tests. I've done all the things. You've been poked and prodded, x-rayed and MRI'd. There's nothing there." Then truly we need to start looking at the mental and emotional frame of your body and understanding the belief system inside and asking, help me with this. There's something I need to release. There's something that's causing the dis-ease. Now I know it's not physical. Let's go to the next things.
Right.
Incorporating all three. It works.
It works. I love the American Indian community because they look at all of the life.
Oh, yeah.
The healers look at what stress have you been under? When was the last time you ate a particular root in some cases? And I'm not being silly because people believe a certain food, certain roots, certain teas are imperative in their daily intake. And an American Indian shaman will want to look at the whole before they start saying this is wrong or this is right.
Yep.
You look like you're giving someone instructions. You look like a mother telling their
I was
child behavior.
telling them, tone down. The dogs are barking, and I don't know if you can hear it. I was like, tone down the dogs, right? Yeah, so we have 5 now. So it's one of those things that we have a puppy. She's, she just is about to turn a year old, and she's 70 pounds, right? She's huge. She's a beautiful dog. And then we just got a new one, and he's a little hyper, a little crazy. And then we've got Kylo, who's, she came from just a situation where she's traumatized a little bit. But the 3 of them get together, and it's like a tornado that happens in my house, right? Just they are just all over the place, and I could hear them just doing crazy stuff. And I was like, I think we can hear that. I'm telling Renee, shh, quiet them down.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, good.
I didn't hear anything. How's Renee? Hey, Renee. Hello.
Oh, he's doing good. He's not in here, but yeah, he's doing well. He's doing well.
See, that's another thing. Public. We have partners. We have babies. We get to raise babies. We get to do those things. And
we do. We're normal humans. And I think realistically, if you're going to be a client, if you're somebody who's like, look, I don't want to learn my intuition. I just want to go get readings and things and teach and learn. Here's what you need to understand. We are human too, right? We're not always all love and light. That's not what you're going to get. I've even told my students, I'm a little bit of an asshole. You piss me off, I'm going to get into that human frame, right? I'm going to forget the fact that there's a divine in there, or maybe I won't and reach into the wrong divine, right? So the idea is to truly understand that we're still human. We're not things that we don't work for you just because you're paying us that way, right? You don't like, here, you tell me what I want to hear. That's not how that works. I'm going to tell you what is needed, what is there. And you're either going to like it or you're not going to like it, or you're going to accept it or you're not going to accept it. But that's not my choice. That's your choice, right? My choice is to just give you the good job. But I will tell you that we are human. Don't think that we're always walking around floating in the air, meditating to the universe. Not all the time. We are still a human frame. We're just here allowing light to flow through us and illuminate your path. That's what we're doing. So be nice to us, right? Be a little kind to us the way that you would with anything else, and lower your expectations. Don't think that just because we're doing this, we're saints. We're running around with just sainthood painted all over us. No, we have jobs, we have lives, we have things. We are trying to make space for you the best way that we can in the hours that we have to be able to work with you. So, lower the frustration, right? Understand that maybe what could be urgent to you and you can't get a hold of us, find another practitioner. There might be somebody there that's out there for you. There's a reason why you can't get a hold of us at the time that you need it. Find a different practitioner or ask, do you have another one that I can go to? Look at the other options. Be cautious though. Look at the other options well. Not all practitioners work the same way, but you should leave that reading feeling full of hope, no matter what the person has to tell you, because we're not always going to tell you good news, but we will tell you where the silver lining is. We're going to ask you to be responsible for your own energy, for you to take an action. Take the action. That way, you have a complete and hopeful frame when you leave. If you leave a practitioner feeling scared or frightened or looking at your bank account because you need to have a cleansing done, be cautious with that. Be cautious with that. Really ask questions or ask for a different practitioner. Go to a different practitioner and see if they tell you that. Don't even give them the information the other one told you. Just go there and listen to what that other practitioner has to say before you commit yourself to something crazy. Map it out, vet it out.
I tell people at fairs, particularly, get 3 readings of tools of your choice. And if you hear the same thing more than once, at least twice, then that's what you really need to pay attention to, even though the wording may not be exactly the same, but you'll get the drift that you've been told the same thing. And especially if you don't like what you hear. She mentioned that a while ago. If you don't like what you hear, pay attention.
Yeah,
there's something there. And especially if it's something that somebody else is going to do or say, if you come back with, oh, they'd never do that, just stop in your tracks.
Never
you don't have to believe it at that moment, but be prepared.
Yeah. Never say never. My husband said never to me 3 times, and I made him go back on that. He said, I'll never get married. I'll never move in with my girlfriend. I'll never have a child. We did all 3. So never say never.
Never say never. And I've seen her family, so I know they did. I know they did that. Renee's a sweetie. That's another thing. We, as practitioners, or even if we're just going through life and we decide we want to know more about whatever, and the people around us are fearful for us, or we do so much studying that we don't spend time. I've known families to fall apart because of one person's spiritual quest, if you want to call it that. And, part of that is, okay, maybe those 2 people weren't supposed to be together to begin with forever and ever and ever. I'm going to have to get out of sight because I've got to gather. Oh, there it is. I have to plug in my computer.
That's right.
Or I'm going to lose you.
I think it's interesting because the spouses of people who are going through the spiritual journeys, it's one way or another, right? Either it breaks the relationship because the other person doesn't want to grow with them, or want to just let things happen, and they're like, you're spending too much time on that, you're not spending time with me. And then it's also the practitioner who's learning to understand balance. It is a balance act that we're doing. We have to balance our own practice with, if we're doing something in the public practice, and then we're also having to balance our families as well. Right. But when we begin to raise our vibration, we begin to learn our knowledge, it actually forces your partner to learn too. It forces them to change. It rubs off, right? It forces them to change and have experiences. And you have to remember, they might not be at the same level that you are ready to make the change. So the balance, again, is to check in, right? Check in often, make sure that you guys are headed still to the same goals, that you've looked up from the battlefield and you're still understanding that you're still in the same battle together, right? To just make sure that you check in and keep connecting. But it is about balance. So don't get too far into what you're doing when you do have a partner, and bring them along your journey as much as they're willing to come. Don't force. Let them decide their own way. Again, their own belief system is being challenged even by what you're doing. And let them kind of just come with it, right? All of this craziness started because of Renee. And he fought me so hard on it when I first started. So hard. I was like, you started all this mess, and now that what I'm doing, and now you're mad? I mean, come on now. And he had to really wrestle with his own frame of thinking, even though he had his own ability. He had his own way of moving it. But he's like, look, I'm a jog around the block kind of guy. I'm not going to go to the Olympics. I'm like, cool, hold my purse, right? I'm all right. I'm going to go to the Olympics, but you got to be okay with holding my purse. Talking to my trainers, dealing with my cohorts, right, that are also on the way to the Olympics. You've got to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the supporting frame, and to learn a little bit about the Olympics that you didn't really want to learn.
This man stood in a hot food line.
He did.
For food for us not long ago at your wonderful conference. Bless his heart. Oh, what is it, Zoe?
He and my son were very magical especially I was more shocked that my son was actually willing to do as much work as he did at the seminar when it was hot and crazy. He just doesn't like being uncomfortable. And they both came out to support me and everyone else that was there, and making sure that they had a wonderful time. And I myself did not even anticipate them, doing half of the things that they did, right? They did such a wonderful job of doing that. And
really behind the scenes.
Yes, then they were like
Yeah.
almost invisible, right? And people didn't really, they were like, where's your husband there? For some reason, a lot of people thought I was married to Jesse Prejean. And I was like, your husband's such a great speaker. I was like, that was not my husband.
But he would be if he got up there.
And I was
Yeah.
like, not my husband, but he would be a great speaker if he wasn't too nervous about talking to other people. But it was just so funny. They're like, your husband's such a wonderful speaker. I was like, who are you talking about? It was Jesse.
Yes,
So
he is a wonderful speaker. He'll be with us too, folks. So watch for him.
yes, Jesse is a wonderful speaker. So I don't know, my spirit died, right? Like, I don't know, but it was just so fun. But no, Renee and Alex were in the background and doing beautiful things, and they've always been very supportive of me doing this, for the exception of when I decided to make it a business, and they went, what do you mean you're going to be teaching? Yeah. Then it was like, what do you mean you're going to be, this is like a regular thing, this teaching thing? And I'm like, yeah, this is like a forever kind of thing. This is the stuff that I love to do. So they had to really wrap their head around it. So, but
that's why you came up with the logo and the branding for Metaphysicalu. When I saw that logo, I thought, she's on her way now.
That logo has been in my head since I was a child. I used to actually draw it on all of my notebooks so that I could identify when stuff was mine when I was at school. I would draw the little check mark with the do and the I and the partial I. That was when I was like, oh, that's my book. How do you know? Because it's marked, right? It had my thing. And so when I was thinking about logos, I was like, well, I'm just going to mark it the way that I mark all of my stuff. I mean, it's on all my things here that I would just kind of like write on it, and that would be it. So it was interesting that it formulating to kind of put that. And then anytime I would pretend to be someone else in like in a setting, like if we were at school and I was in one of our like plays and things like that, my character name was always Sara. So I just thought that was really funny. That why would I have thought about that when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, and come up with that logo when I was about 9 or 10, when I started going to school and I wanted to mark my things so I could identify when something was mine. It was just a really weird kind of circle back. So
when I saw that, when I met you, the night that I met you, and what is she doing here? She needs to be da 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 da. And we didn't have much time that evening to visit at all. You had other responsibilities that evening, and I was there as a guest, and it was Halloween, folks. It was a fun night. Yes, Zoe, I know you're here, but as we got to know each other, and we didn't see each other all the time, so I saw you grow, and when you got your office. And then you started doing this. It was like everything was in order. And now you're leveling off for a while, like you're resting, because the next event is going to be a swoosh. That's, you're already nationally known. You're already nationally known.
I'm also internationally known, which I thought
I just started to say, and I know you're internationally known too. Yeah. So, but it's you're just growing and growing and growing. So one of these days, listeners, we'll be able to say, well, we got to listen to Sara for free. For free. And I can say, yeah, I had a conversation and I called her friend long ago. So I get the fun at my age. I have the fun of watching others grow up these days, and it's fun. It's just fun.
Don't worry, I'm not going to grow up without you. I'm going to trail you along and be like, come look at this stuff.
Well, I figure I've got about another 20 years. So, and it'll go fast. Trust me. It'll go fast.
It'll go fast. For the two of us. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. What do you want speaking of trusting? And I know the word legacy is something that we think of when people come to an end. What is your legacy? But I also know that a legacy is something that we are subconsciously building. What would you like your legacy to be at this point in your life?
I would want my legacy to be that the community I've built is accepting. It's all accepting, no matter what walk of life you come from, no matter what frame that you're in, that I've inspired someone to look within, to truly remove the blocks that were either implanted in them or socially pushed on them, or trauma seized them into that frame, to be able to just open that frame up and allow for themselves to trust themselves, to trust the intuition when it comes, and to just be in their awareness, and that it's okay to be who you are, not who people think you should be. That's an okay.
Say that again for the public. Say that again.
To be who you are and not what people think you should be, because those people are not living your life. Those people will not be on their deathbed regretting not doing something when they should have or could have or would have. Those people, they're not going to be there. It's only going to be you. So live the life you want. That's what I hope that my legacy will leave.
You have a lot of students. Do you want to continue to teach?
I will continue to teach, yeah. I will continue to teach, and I'm hoping, I mean, the dream really, Elaine, is to have like a brick and mortar school, like kind of like my own Hogwarts, right? The brick and mortar school that has practitioners from different specializations that will teach and learn. So that way people can come to me for foundations of practice to really understand, and then go to them when they begin to specialize in certain things or have specific questions that I don't specialize in, right? Let them learn from the masters, let them learn from that frame. Because in that way, those masters can continue their own legacy of teaching, their own way of putting things out there. So eventually, that's kind of the goal. The goal is to have that full school, and provide also the services for people who need the healing, right? A place where people can pay for the service, it's affordable, they can add it on to their mix of whatever their physical needs are, and bring in practitioners that do a bunch of different things that nobody's ever heard of, right? Like a lot of people are not familiar with the death doula practice, and that's something that's been kind of coming up in the last few years. Or a lot of people are not familiar with color puncturing, which is the way that's acupuncture essentially for your etheric body, right? And nobody's familiar with that. And we have practitioners that do this all of the time, or myofacial practitioners and myofascial practitioners and all these kinds of things that people don't understand are there. And they're not necessarily part of that mainstream world, but they do fill that beautiful space where it combines with that trifecta, right? Healing your mind, healing your physical body, and healing your spirit. So hopefully,
doula is something that for about the last 2 years I've been thinking seriously about being certified as. Seriously. I don't know where that came from. Spirit. Just all of a sudden it became an interest.
Yeah, do it. By God, it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Take advantage of all the techniques that are out there. I'm hoping to be that one-stop shop that people go, hey, have you ever heard of this? And, can we do this? Or a student that says, hey, I think I'm ready to start doing something. And I go, all right, let's put you on the floor and see what happens, right? Let's see how it goes. Give them the opportunity to grow and learn side by side with somebody who's either a master at what they're doing or can assist them in kind of becoming that master that they have inside, right? So that's the dream. That is the dream. That is the legacy hopefully I get to leave behind.
I love it. What do you want to leave today with the public about who you are?
About who I am? Not really. More about just come learn, right? Come learn in any frame that you need to, right? Come learn with us in the community on Wednesday nights. It's free. Come learn, take a foundations class, do one. Meet the other practitioners that are part of my team. Listen to the podcast. We have a podcast called MP Unleashed, where we have a frame.
Called what?
Our podcast is called MP Unleashed. It truly is us bringing the paranormal to normal, because this is a normal part of everybody. It's not something that's just outside or obscure that you would see in Hollywood and things like that. This is what we do all of the time. So it truly is opening those eyes. Learn. Don't stay in one place, right? Come, I'll meet you where you are, but I'm going to expect you not to stay there.
I like that. I'll meet you where you are, but I expect you not to stay there. That's a tagline. That is a tagline. Remember that one.
It'll be the title of my next book, right?
There you go. Speaking of books, Do you have any books to suggest to the public? We're going to have a library on the
Oh,
site.
I have, oh God, you're like books. I have several books. It depending on the topic. If you're kind of getting started or wanting to learn somebody and you're kind of um what's the best way? So anything from John H. Hewitt, I love. He has a beginning practitioner or beginning psychic workbook. That is fantastic. I love the way that
How do
he
you spell his
frames
last
things.
name?
It's Hewlett, Hewlett.
I'm writing
And he's known for he was a hypnotherapist for a long time, but he started off his practice as a medium and then turned into the hypnotherapy where he naturally just started doing it, didn't even understand what he was doing, and then put all of these things together. I really enjoyed his books when I was first learning, and I found his books like it was just random. I was trolling the library and found like ran across one of his books. I was like, what is this? And it was amazing. I almost like lost my mind because I loved the way that he explained how to slowly bring things in through colors or visualization, and then how to, he has a whole book of hypnosis scripts that you can read to yourself. And I think this is fantastic because you can read the script to yourself, record it, play it back to yourself in your own voice. And it's like overriding that negative voice you carry in your brain. So you're hearing something a little louder in a positive frame talking to you when you normally are giving more attention to the negative space. And when you begin to do that, man, your whole life begins to change. Just that positive framing in your own sound. Amazing.
We will have a library, which will be a list of books, recordings, whatever, that our practitioners will suggest. And so that will be under your name. If you have any others that you would like to add to the library, just send them to me. And
Oh, we have an amazing, she volunteered to be the Metaphysicalu librarian. Her name is Jennifer Lugo. And she was like, I'll be librarian. I will bring different books and different things. So I'm hoping to be able to start even like our MPU book club where we just pick a book and start reading and discussing it and that kind of stuff. But she is amazing. So she brings in a lot of different things to us. We're just starting off doing the same thing because books are amazing things. Just a big hint, get a topic and go find the oldest book on it first. And then read your way forward.
The oldest book.
Yes, find the oldest book you can possibly find on that topic and move forward in time, because a lot of things get watered around, right? Or writers put their own opinions into stuff, and so they water things out. But if you find the oldest thing, you can see the progression of how a certain topic, where there be, I don't know, astral projection or remote view or cryptids or things like that. If you find the oldest frame of it and you move yourself forward and you begin to study the history of this, the history of metaphysical, the history of psychic work, the history of mediumship, the history of communicating with spirits, right? If you're looking at it in a historical fashion, it will open up doors a little bit better than you thinking of it in a I believe fashion. It's just so different.
That phrase. You need to include that in one of the books that you write.
Got it. I will do it.
Got it. There's a thing called the public domain. And it's a deep dive. Trust me, it is a deep dive. But if you go to Google and you just type in public domain, then you can type in, it pulls up a page and it wants to know what you want. And you can type in this man's name, let's say, or hypnotherapy. And then it will lead you to books, to records, to conventions, to videos, to a number of things. But keep in mind, if you go on the public domain, that if something was written or described in even 1950, it may not be the same today. So haircuts, salons, beauty shops, you have to find the word for the time frame you're looking. That's why it becomes a deep dive. But
there's also a place called PDF Drive, and it's pdfdrive.com, where you can search for books that are ebooks. Some books have been scanned in and you can download them to there, and you'll find really obscure books that are in there. It is an amazing site. And again, it's called pdfdrive.com.
pdfdrive.com. I wrote it down. Okay.
Yes.
We can mention that too in the library as a reference source.
You can find a lot of the older books that I'm talking about there. If you can't find them in your local library, you'll be able to do that. And remember, your local library is free. Don't be buying stuff like me. Renee's like, please plug the library because you buy too many books. I'm like, yeah, I know I do. But it's because I like to write in them, right? And take notes, especially if they're really good books that I reference all the time. And never throw a book away. Never, 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 never throw a book away. I learned that the hard way. It sucks. Because then I'm like, shit, if I still had that book, and then I went to go find one and they're no longer in print, or I have to be trolling things to kind of find it. Never throw a book away. Even if you didn't read it, just kind of sit on the shelf, especially when it comes anything with the metaphysical. Eventually, for some reason, you'll pull that book out and it'll begin to make sense to you. So never, never throw a book away.
Not only that, but we can read a book that seems really deep in our 20s, not read it again until 30s and 40s, and we always pick up something different.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that was a lot for what would you like to leave with us? Thank you. Thank you very much. If we could stand up and clap, we all would. Thank you for being with me in all seriousness. I appreciate your time. She's a busy lady. She has a full-time job. She has a family. She has 5 dogs. She has her practice, and she has people that look up to her as a mentor, and she takes that very seriously. So contact Sara, and we will include your email because you're going to send it all to me.
Yes.
And your phone number. But if you would like to include one or both right now, please do, so they can reach out to you now.
You can always reach me at my website. It's www.metaphysical.com. You can click on there, especially if you're going to do the Wednesday night catch up that is free, or the Wednesday night development group. The link is there. You just click 8 o'clock, meet us, right? Join us then.
Okay. Thank you, Sara, so much for your time, this energy. I appreciate you, girl.
No,
take care
thank
of
you so
yourself.
much.
You hug your family for me, okay?
Will do.
Okay. Mwah.
Bye, my lady.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into The Conversations with the Ancients, where we take you on a journey where you'll hear voices of metaphysicians from the past, as well as today's spirit mediums, healers, and others who show you a side of the paranormal you've never seen before. Remember to visit our website at conversationswiththeancients.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with the Ancients.